What I think Black women and other women of color really can benefit from is the opportunity for those experiences to be witnessed, to be observed by others.
You know what nobody tells us in business? That you need to surround yourself with like-minded people who are going to help you and elevate you and inspire you to grow further in your life and business. Now, this year, Women Thrive Summit is coming to do just that for you. Bring you amazing networking opportunities, amazing speakers from all around the world who's going to share their secrets to success. If you have never saved yourself a spot at Women Thrive Summit, this is an opportunity for you to do that. We're hosting this live virtual event 16th to the 20th of March, and this is where you need to be to meet other like-minded women who are going to help you rise and thrive in business and life. Go ahead and save your spot today. Welcome to Women Thrive Season 5. This season, you can expect incredible conversations with women from all around the world. We at Women Thrive, not only do we put on incredible conversations with women, host events, retreats, publish a magazine, publish books, and we have created a platform for every woman to shine and share her message. So you right now tapping into a podcast that is globally recognized as the place for women to be and share their message. Be inspired, be part of the conversation, and let's thrive together. Hello and welcome to Women Thrive. I'm so excited to have you here for another episode of Women Thrive podcast series. My name is Ramonda Jan, and today we are talking about thriving together, sustaining leadership that needs witnesses. And today's story is somewhat different than maybe what you have heard before. I'm excited for you to tap into it. We are going to talk about leadership, also diversity, maybe being the only one in the room. And if you have ever experienced being the only one in the room, or perhaps felt uncomfortable in certain rooms where you didn't expect to feel that way, I think this conversation really invites us all to be open-minded and to hear from other people's experiences and see what can be done to make things better and make sure that we are sitting in rooms that feel inclusive, that feel empowering, and that we can sustain those. So my lovely guest today is Chenelle Boatswain. Hi, Chenelle. How are you?
Hi, Ramonda. Thank you so much for having me. I'm great.
Where are you joining from?
I'm joining from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the US.
Yes, and I've heard you speak on one of our showcases recently, actually, and this conversation was very, very interesting. So I'm really glad that we're getting to kind of unpick it a little bit more and also invite our audience to be part of this conversation because, like I said, it's a topic that doesn't come up very often, but also I think it's so important, especially in today's environment where we are. So before I give out too much, I want to introduce my speaker today. So Chenelle Boatswain is an educator, master facilitator, and leadership development scholar dedicated to supporting and sustaining success of Black women leaders. She's the founder of CSB Consulting Services, where she partners with academic institutions to advance institutional transformation and disrupt isolation, burnout, and attrition amongst women of color in leadership. And her signature program, the Thriving Together Network, convenes high-performing leaders in culturally affirming, protective professional communities that center collective care as a pathway to balancing wellness with ambition. Chanel, really good to have you here. Like I said, this is going to be a really interesting conversation. So as we dive in, tell us a little bit more about your story, your journey, and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again for this opportunity. I'm so grateful to be in a community with so many women like you, Ramonda, and you are particularly inspiring in just being authentic to who we are and bringing our voice to the table. And I just heard you say, you and Abby were having a conversation in another podcast episode about doing it scared. And so I appreciate that push and I'm grateful to be able to be here to talk a little bit about this work that I'm passionate about. I fell into this. I was not looking to be inspiring anybody. I was, I was in K-12 leadership and have always enjoyed working with children. So that really has been a starting point for me. And I found myself at a pivot point in my career looking to grow and develop as a school leader and transitioned into higher education in part to do my doctoral studies and in part to expand the field to be able to work with undergraduate students, college age students, and beyond. And found myself in this really unexpected and what became a really painful disruption in my experience as a leader. When I started off in leadership, I happened to be working in a community that I was really privileged to be able to be reflected in and be reflective of. The majority of the students who I worked with, the community that I worked with, were predominantly Black and brown. And I happened to work with a leader who was also a Black woman. Some rare experiences, actually. And I don't think I knew how special it was for me to be in a space where I felt routinely affirmed and reflected. I transitioned into a space where I became one of a few and experienced silencing in a way that I could not predict. I felt really confident and clear about who I was as a leader, as a woman, as a Black woman, and as a decision maker, but very quickly found that as I was in rooms where I was frequently the only person of color, sometimes the only woman or one of a few, and then reading and being asked to communicate in ways that all felt really reflective of a different demographic than my own, I found myself really challenged to find my voice. I was confused. I was concerned. And eventually I got to a place of feeling like I don't belong here. I'm not supposed to be here. This was a mistake. I need to go back to where I was. Except that I'm not a quitter. And that doesn't really resonate with the ways that I approach challenges. And so I was interested in wanting, desperate, frankly, not even interested, desperate to find other people whose experiences reflected this navigation of being the one or being one of the few and being maybe the only to have walked a
Mm.
journey. And it was really challenging to find other folks who shared that experience and who were willing to speak on it. And so
Yeah.
that's what had brought me to this different interrogation of what is happening for Black women who lead. And because I am in academic spaces, I was particularly interested in what was happening for those folks to understand what is happening. How is it that we've gotten to a place where maybe we're not comfortable speaking about what's happening for us? And am I really the only person who's experiencing this thing where I feel really clear and confident about my thoughts, but I can't get them out? That's how I arrived here.
Mm. As far as the work that you're doing, tell me a little bit more about what are your intentions and who do you want to support?
Yeah. So I help Black women academic leaders access affirming communities that speak to the sustaining success that many of us desire to have when we get into our work. There are many ways in which the conditions that surround leadership for everybody, I think leadership for women, and then I think for leadership for women of color, there are these
Mm.
layers where it becomes increasingly isolating.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that isolation and maybe some of the conditions that lead to that isolation can drive folks out of leadership sooner than anyone who takes on a leadership role desires to. And so I really help folks who are at the margins of society in ways and at the center of organizations bridge those complex contradictions to be able to work with one another and give visibility to their experiences in hopes to raise their sense of support and affirmation and ultimately to help to sustain them in their work.
So, if women find themselves in the spaces where perhaps they don't feel welcome, perhaps they being segregated or treated differently, what do you think from your experience are the options or ways of handling those situations that allows you to be heard as opposed to escalate as a problem?
Right. It's challenging. And we are in a particularly challenging season around advocacy and organizational transformation. I think there are two sides to the story. One is what organizations can do
Yeah.
to facilitate support, to facilitate affirmation, to facilitate care. And a lot of that has to do with understanding your own organizational culture and the ways that you allow the people who are part of your communities to be authentically engaged and represented and understood in all of the aspects of your organization, from decision making to just existing, arriving, belonging. And then, of course, there's the experience of the individual.
Yeah.
And what I think a lot of folks, for certainly by the time someone makes it to a leadership role, they have had multiple opportunities. A leader has had multiple opportunities to sense check their own idea. If they're a leader who exists in some marginalized identity in society, as is the case for Black women in most societies, you've had a lot of practice at identifying where the windows are, identifying where the exits and entrances are. You're very skilled at recognizing where you are welcome and when your voice is invited and not. Probably also pretty skilled at knowing how to move in the room. But what you don't always get an opportunity to do is to be believed about the things that you are navigating.
Mm.
There's a way that sometimes you can see or experience a barrier that sometimes feels like it's only visible to you. And in some rooms, it might only be visible to
Yeah.
you. And what I think Black women and other women of color really can benefit from is the opportunity for those experiences to be witnessed, to be observed by others, to be named by others, either who share that experience or even if it's
Mm.
people who don't share the experience but can say, I validate that reality. I know that when it was your turn to speak, that you got skipped over, or I know that when you said that thing, it was really powerful and important, but somehow it didn't get heard until three people later when another person, maybe a man or
Mm.
maybe a woman, a white woman, said the thing that you said, and then it was suddenly understood as a great idea. I want to affirm with you that I heard you say it. I want to affirm that I understood that was your idea, and that by itself can be such a powerful contribution, I think, to helping people to stay in the work, to know that I'm not holding some of my experiences and realities by myself.
Yeah. I think that's the power of us having conversations in diverse rooms and also making sure that we have peers who understand our experiences because I think what's really important to highlight that it can be really isolating to witness you experiencing that and not be able to advocate for yourself. So therefore, you almost need your peers who going to advocate and kind of put you forward and just see what's going on. And that's why I think that this conversation is about having a witness in a room who understands, who's able to stand with you in that scenario or that incident. So you feel less alone because I think the power play, especially these days, is to make sure, especially women are silenced. Women are not heard. Women are demeaned or less than. So we're not always welcome in rooms where decisions are being made or we're not always listened to. So I think that's really, really important to make sure we are not isolated and we don't feel
Mhm.
alone because those incidents happens in a moment, but it's not like in isolation because there's other women who are also experiencing it. So if we don't have these conversations, like, oh, you're experiencing that too. And that's why I think having those conversations in a community is really important.
Agreed. I agreed. And as you're naming the power of reflecting back, sometimes the environment or the culture around you is just enough of a lift or enough of a relief to help you not to internalize something that doesn't belong to you. We have enough to carry independently. And so it's good to clarify what's mine to own and what belongs to somebody else. And sometimes that conversation or that moment of affirmation or validation can be enough to say, this is not mine. This is not my issue. I'm experiencing it and it's impacting me, but it's actually not mine. And that can
Yeah.
be enough to just keep my focus on what I actually can control.
Yeah. Do you think as we navigate professional environments, asking those questions right up front on a point of being hired and or stepping into a new leadership position, asking what are your diversity policies? What are your policies around speaking up or dealing with particular issues? Do you think that would, I don't know how to explain it, almost like that be part of the conversation right up front and bring
I,
something to light?
yeah, I do. I think that there is some vetting that is important for folks to do about the organization culture and how you arrive there sometimes takes some creativity, because we all believe ourselves to be who we aspire to be. And so sometimes
Yeah.
we will describe ourselves and organizations will describe themselves as
Mm,
being inclusive and caring and supportive. And we have these affinity groups or we have these resource support spaces. Those are maybe signals of support and care. I happen to be in the experience that re was really upending for me. I think there were endless resources to name that were na designed to support Black people, Black women of color, women generally. And yet, I was in this experience that felt very isolating, where I don't think that the
mm,
people around me were aware of the impact sometimes of the choices and contributions to my experience that were happening. So another test point or another opportunity might be to speak to people who are in the organization. If you can get to a place, a question that I have asked is in just doing some research of who's in the organization, I might just name some folks.
yeah.
If they're not already at the table, is there an opportunity for me to have a conversation with these three people? Or I might just reach out to them independently and say, I am exploring working at your organization or working in your university or whatever, and
Mm,
I would love to know how you experience the space as and name the identities that feel like are relevant to you, or are you willing to name for me the identities that you hold, and are you willing to tell me about how you see those your experiences in those
mm,
ways being supported, uplifted, or not? And
mm,
I unfortunately I've had the experience of walking away from an opportunity that I for me was really exciting because it was difficult for me to hear some of the ways that the lengths that people were going to find support for themselves were not, for me, didn't feel sustainable. And so I thought, thank you for the information before I arrive.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we as women, particularly, are navigating a lot of that in today's world. But I believe that women of color and women of different backgrounds are experiencing that even more again, which is isolating. And it's not an easy thing when you come into an environment and you maybe bring a lot of ideas and excitement and opportunities, and yet kind of not being seen for your potential, for what you bring to the table. It's like, well, that's a bit deflating, right? To be overlooked and overshadowed by maybe another white male who maybe doesn't carry as much. So yeah, I think it must be really, really difficult to stay silent, and maybe we shouldn't.
And I would love for us not to, and I think many of us would love
Yeah.
not to, and we know how to read a room, and so it takes some creativity to figure out when to speak and when not to. What often happens, the women that I work with are the twice as hard to get half as far generation. We have been
Oh,
socialized since we were girls that we are always going to have to be at least twice as good. We're always going to have to be the best in the room, that we're
mm,
always going to have to be polished, and that excellence has to be a norm. And there's a way that is both true and necessary, and it adds a layer of demand for what we are bringing and navigating and holding when we're in the spaces that we're in. What I desire for women of color who lead to experience in community with one another is an opportunity to shed some of those layers, to be able to have, when I talk about restoring our sense of humanity, it's the opportunity to be able to be as vulnerable as you are strong. It's the
mm,
opportunity to be able to be honest and not judged for the honesty that you communicate. It's being able to be angry
yeah.
and have your anger understood as opposed to feared. It's being able to be sad and unsure and maybe indecisive about something without someone questioning your competence, knowing that what I bring is what I bring. And I'm a person and I am not perfect and I need space to be able to be, I need opportunities where I don't have to be at the top of my game,
Mm,
because nobody is at the top of their game 100% of the time. And we happen to be around a lot of people, and we see certainly a lot of people in leadership who are never at the top of their game, but who get to stay celebrated and supported. So we deserve and need opportunities to experience that
mm.
flexibility and that reality of humanity as well.
This reminds me of one of the reasons why I designed our community and why I actually stepped into entrepreneurship because I didn't want to be fighting those battles. I didn't want to find myself in the corporate environment trying to run the race. And I wanted to create a space where we women feel safe to be ourselves, to work to our best of our potential and be recognized for it because I see us being overlooked, especially entrepreneurs who are trying to do something really meaningful and finding innovative solutions to problems, being very creative, yet not being celebrated, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the media. A lot of times we are being overlooked. The media will highlight the celebrities that are, you don't know what they're famous for yet. Women who are truly doing something meaningful and impactful and not being celebrated. And therefore, I think that comes back to Women Thrive mission of why we do what we do is just for women's voices to be heard and for us to have these conversations that are important to be had because there is somebody else on the other side of this maybe podcast episode who's listening is like, wow, I've shared the same experiences as you, Chanel. Like I've been in those rooms, I've had those experiences that I wish I didn't, but what do I do? Right. So Chanel, I know you're designing something quite meaningful and important for people to feel and be supported in. So tell me a little bit more about what you're working on right now.
Yes, yes. The Thriving Together Network is a leadership community for women of color to align with other individuals who will help to promote their sense of wellness and to engage together in collective care with as much intention as we or in as much intention for our wellness and our self-care as we pursue our own ambition. We want to match those two. And this is an opportunity and a space for the exact experience that we're talking about to come to life, where you can lay down the masks, you can lay down the capes, you can lay down the shields, and just be you and be understood and be heard and be encouraged and be celebrated before going back to the places that expect top notch from you. This is an opportunity for you to be able to be that, but also to be soft and to be cared for and held with other people who know those experiences of leadership.
Yeah.
Thriving Together Network.
Amazing. I think it's so needed. And when you do create a space, it's like coming home. It's like stepping into a place and knowing that's your tribe, that's your people, that's a place where it feels safe and supportive to have those conversations. So I'm excited for your network, for your community, and for this space really to belong for people who really need that. Michelle, where is the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at Dr. C.S. Boatswain or Chenelle S. Boatswain on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'd love for you to keep this conversation alive, to tap into the community, join my email list, and get connected with other women who are navigating some of these dynamics and looking to be soft along with you.
Yeah, and you are one of our speakers at the Women Thrive Summit. What can people expect at the Women Thrive Talk?
I'm so excited to talk on March 20th about this idea of witness. So, what the talk is called, Can I Get a Witness? Leading as We, Not Me. And I'll continue to touch on this idea of having the realities of our experiences as women of color who lead, being seen, known, and understood, and being able to be held in community with solidarity, with support, and with care as we continue to do really important work in our industries.
Yeah, that's amazing. Chanel, I'm looking forward to having you at the Women Thrive Summit in March. And to all of our listeners, if you feel inspired by this conversation, make sure you do connect with Chanel. All of her information will be available in the show notes. And just connect with her on social media, check out her website, and look out for more information about the community that she is building to support you all. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this episode, do make sure you share it with them as well. Now, our summit that is happening March 16th to the 20th is our annual Women Empowerment event of the year. you got to be there to experience it. It's a week-long virtual live event that you got to be part of, because we have more than nearly 50 speakers this year who are going to be sharing their stories, their experience, their knowledge, their wisdom with you. And you can join this event free of charge. So highly recommend that you go over to womenthrivesummit.com, register for your free spot, and be there to witness all of these incredible speakers in their beautiful moment, and of course connect with other people who are going to be there as well. Chenelle, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you for bringing this important topic to spotlight, which is really, really needed, and we need to have these conversations more often.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Great to have you. To all of our listeners, thank you for being here with us today, and we look forward to seeing you on another episode. Take care for now. Thank you for listening to this episode of Women Thrive Podcast. I'm so thankful for you as a listener for spending time with us, myself and my co-host Abigail, to hear our conversations with our guests. If you have had the opportunity to hear our podcast, do make sure you leave a review and share this episode with your audience as well. This has helped us reach the 5 top % globally ranked podcasts, as well as reach more than 30,000 downloads to date. Your support means so much to us, and this is how we get to reach more people around the world. At Women Thrive Media, we're here to amplify voices of women and empower women to take the center stage and shine a spotlight on their messages.